Hey everyone, ready to ditch that whole work till you're 65 thing? Like, what if there's a better way? Today we're diving into MJ DeMarco's The Millionaire Fastlane. This book, it really tears apart like the traditional ideas about getting rich, and it gives you, well, it says it gives you a better option.
It definitely throws the whole climb the corporate ladder thing right out the window.
Exactly.
DeMarco, he's a self-made millionaire, and he basically says that the whole go to college, get a job, invest in your 401k plan, it's like way too slow.
Right.
It's risky. And the worst part, it just eats up your time, and that's the one thing you can't get back.
And honestly, these days, who even knows that that traditional path is going to work out? The economy is
Right.
shaky, to
Yeah.
say the least. So what was DeMarco's like aha moment? It all comes back to a Lamborghini.
Okay, so picture this. DeMarco, he's still pretty young, and he sees this guy, like his age, driving a Lamborghini. And he's like, wait a minute, how did this guy figure it out so young?
Yeah.
That's what got him thinking? That's what made him question everything he thought he knew about building wealth. And that whole experience, it led him to this fast lane strategy.
So he calls this traditional path the like get rich slow mindset.
Mm,
Basically saying it's outdated, maybe even dangerous because who knows if it will even work and it'll just suck up your time.
Yeah, and for younger people especially, with how crazy the economy is these
That's
days,
it.
it makes sense that a lot of people are listening to this message, right? But before we get into this whole fast lane thing, we've got to understand what DeMarco thinks is really important, like the core of being wealthy, his wealth trinity.
Okay, so what's this wealth trinity? Is it some big secret that only millionaires know about?
Not really, actually. It's actually really simple. Freedom, being healthy, and having good relationships.
Okay.
He's saying that having a lot of stuff, like that Lamborghini we were talking about, that's just a result of having these things. It's not the goal in and of itself.
So it's not just about like having a ton of money. It's about having a life where you can do what you want when you want to with people you care about
Exactly.
and being healthy enough to enjoy it. Right.
Exactly. And he tells this story about this guy, Henry, to show what he means. So Henry, he gets this huge house.
Okay.
The whole 9 yards, a 5-car garage, everything. Yeah, totally. He thinks he's finally made it. But then, just a few weeks later, it hits him. He's got this huge mortgage, and it kind of ruins the whole thing for him.
Oh, so it's like that saying, more money, more problems.
Yeah, it shows that just chasing after the appearance of being wealthy can actually trap you.
It's like a gilded cage, right?
Uh-huh.
It looks all shiny from the outside,
Totally.
but you're still stuck.
And that brings us back to what DeMarco's always saying. Being free to do what you want, that's what real wealth is all about. If you're so busy paying for all your stuff that you don't have time for anything else,
Right.
then you've kind of missed the point.
So, for everyone listening, think about this. What does being free mean to you? Like, forget about fancy cars and all that. What are you really working towards? Is it retiring early, traveling the world, finally starting that project you've been putting off? Figure out what you really want, because if you don't know where you're going, it's easy to get lost, right?
Oh.
So we've officially ditched the whole get rich slow idea, right? We're ready for this millionaire fast lane. But is it really a fast lane, or is it just another one of those get rich quick schemes with a fancy name?
This is where DeMarco's ideas get interesting. He's not promising you'll be rich tomorrow. He wants you to change how you think about making money in the first place. His main thing is building money trees.
Money trees.
Yeah, businesses that basically work for you even when you're sleeping. You're not trading your time for dollars anymore. You're building something that makes money whether you're working or not.
Okay, so it's about leverage.
Yeah.
Instead of like clocking in and out every day, you're building something that makes you money passively. That's the dream. But how do you actually do that? How do you plant these money trees?
That's where DeMarco's business seedlings come in.
Business seedlings.
Yeah, think of them like business models that can turn into those money-making machines we're talking about. He has a few main types, like rental systems, computer systems, making content, kind of like this book, actually, distribution systems, and even human resources, although he says that last one can be tricky.
Yeah, managing people can feel like the opposite of passive income sometimes. It's interesting, though, he chose these specific business models. What makes them so special?
They can all grow really big. Take rental systems, for example. You buy something like real estate or even just equipment, and it makes money for you every month. And once it's all set up, you don't have to do much. Or think about building a website like DeMarco did with that limo website he talks about. It took some time and work to build, but once it was up and running, it could reach people all over the world and make money 24/7.
And you can see how that scaling up thing works with making content too. DeMarco hit the jackpot with his book. But even on a smaller scale, making online courses, writing ebooks, even having a YouTube channel, all of that can bring in passive income. It's pretty amazing when you think about all the possibilities.
Yeah.
But how do we know which ideas are actually Fastlane material and which ones are just like regular jobs in disguise?
That's where DeMarco's 5 commandments come in. He uses this acronym, NECS.
Nessies.
Yeah, it stands for need, entry, control, scale, and time. It's like a checklist for your business ideas to see if they have what it takes to be successful in the fast lane.
Okay, let's go through these commandments one by one. First up, need.
Right. This one might surprise some people, but DeMarco's really clear about it. Forget about doing what you love, at least when you're starting out. Instead, you got to find a real need in the market and figure out how to fill it. He says all the passion in the world won't help you if nobody wants what you're selling.
He talks about this guy who loved martial arts, so he opens up a martial arts studio.
Sure.
But the business failed. Just because you're passionate about something doesn't mean other people are willing to pay for it.
Exactly. You have to be honest with yourself about your idea. Do people actually need this? How many people are looking for a solution to this problem? And is your solution better than what's already out there? If you answer these questions honestly, it can save you a lot of trouble down the line.
So need is all about making sure your idea makes sense in the real world. What about entry?
This one's all about how easy it is to start your business. If it's super easy, it's probably not going to get you to the fast lane. He uses the example of the eBay gold rush. Back then, everyone thought they could make a fortune selling stuff online.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
But the people who got really rich were eBay itself and the people who got in early, before the market was flooded with sellers.
So basically, if it's easy for you to start doing it, it's probably easy for everyone else too.
Exactly. When something's easy to get into, you get a ton of competition, and then it's hard to stand out and build a business that will last.
That makes sense. So if you're coming up with business ideas during your lunch break and everyone you know could do the same thing, it's time to go back to the drawing board.
Exactly. And that leads right into the next commandment, control. DeMarco's big on being in charge of your own destiny. Are you the shark or are you the guppy?
I like being the shark better.
Right. He says you want to find business models where you're calling the shots, not someone else. He even talks about his own experience with multi-level marketing as an example. Yeah, he realized that in those businesses, you often don't have much control over whether you succeed or not. You're stuck with whatever products, prices, and marketing the company has. It's a good reminder to always look at who has the power in any business model you're considering.
That's a good point. You want to be in the driver's seat, right? You don't want to just be along for the ride. Okay, so what's next?
Scale. Remember how we were talking about leverage before?
Yeah, making your business work for you.
Right. So it's not enough to just replace your 9-to-5 job. Your business needs to be able to grow way bigger than that. It needs to multiply your effort and your income. DeMarco talked about how powerful the internet is for reaching millions of people, but he says we shouldn't limit ourselves to online businesses.
Oh, interesting.
The key is to find ways to grow exponentially. Maybe that's by copying your system, franchising, partnering with other businesses, or expanding into new markets. The question is, could your business serve 10 times, 100 times, even 1,000 times more customers without you having to work 1,000 times harder? That's what scaling is all about.
So even a local business like a bakery, if they found a way to scale up their production and delivery, they could become a money tree.
Exactly. It's about working smarter, not harder. And finally, we get to the last commandment, time. This one's about getting that freedom DeMarco's always talking about.
It's about being able to make money without having to trade your time for it. Passive income, right?
Exactly. You want to build a system that runs itself, so you don't have to constantly be working on it. That frees you up to do other things you love, like spending time with family and friends, traveling, or just enjoying life.
These 5 commandments are really useful, but it's a lot to take in. So for everyone listening, how can we start using these ideas in our own lives?
That's where DeMarco's practical tools and real-life examples come in. He doesn't just throw these big ideas at you and then disappear. He gives you actual strategies to use them.
Okay, so give us the good stuff. What are some tools we can start using today to get into the fast lane? Okay, so we've got these 5 commandments to help us come up with business ideas, but how do we actually decide what to do? It's like, where do you even begin?
Right. It can be overwhelming for sure. But DeMarco has this tool. He calls it the WDM.
The-
The WAM, it stands for Weighted Average Decision Matrix.
Oh, wow. That sounds intense.
It's not as complicated as it sounds.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a way to make smarter decisions. Instead of just going with your gut feeling,
Ooh.
you're actually using data and logic.
I like that. So no more emotional decisions, right?
Yeah.
Just cold, hard facts.
Pretty much. You start by figuring out what things are most important to you, like what are your priorities. Then you give each one a score based on how important it is. DeMarco uses the example of trying to decide whether to move from Detroit to Phoenix. So he looks at things like how much does it cost to live there, what are the job opportunities like, even the weather and lifestyle.
Okay.
And he gives each one a number based on how important it is to him personally.
So it's like a supercharged pros and cons list, but more like official and mathematical.
Right. Exactly. And you can use it for all sorts of big decisions. Changing careers, moving to a new city, even deciding whether to go for a business idea.
That's really useful. So what else does DeMarco talk about?
Well, he talks a lot about failure, like what happens when things don't go your way.
Which, let's face it, happens to everyone, right?
Totally. And he says we need to change how we think about failure. Instead of seeing it as like the end of the world,
Right.
we should see it as feedback. It's just information that can help you do better next time.
That's a good way to look at it. It's easy to get discouraged when things go wrong, but if you can learn from it, it's not really a failure, right?
Exactly. Ask yourself, what did I learn from this? What can I do differently next time? DeMarco says that having this kind of mindset, this growth mindset, is super important when you're trying to build something new.
It makes sense. So much of entrepreneurship is about trying things out, seeing what works, and learning as you go.
Exactly. And speaking of learning, DeMarco also talks about the importance of who you surround yourself with.
Oh, yeah. Your environment, right?
Totally. He says the people you spend time with can either lift you up or hold you back. Are you hanging out with people who tell you your ideas are stupid?
Yeah. Or like, you'll never be able to do that.
Right. Or are you connecting with people who believe in you, who inspire you to go after what you want? It makes a huge difference.
It's true. You got to have your cheer squad, people who support your vision, even when it's just an idea. Because let's be real, starting something new is scary. And it's way easier to give up if the people around you are negative.
Exactly. And it's not just about having people who are positive. It's also about having people who challenge you to grow, to become the best version of yourself.
Totally. Surround yourself with people who want to see you win.
Yeah.
So besides having the right people around you, what else can help you stay on track towards the fast lane?
Well, DeMarco is really big on avoiding debt, like really big.
Debt, as in owing money.
Yeah. He calls it parasitic debt, the kind of debt you get from spending too much on stuff you don't actually need.
Oh, like those impulse purchases.
Exactly. And then you're stuck in this cycle of working just to pay off what you bought yesterday.
It's so easy to fall into that trap. Everywhere you look, there's advertising telling you to buy things you don't need, a new phone, a fancy car, you name it.
Right. But DeMarco reminds us that true wealth isn't about having a bunch of stuff. It's about having the freedom to make choices that are aligned with what you really value.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget that when you're constantly being bombarded with messages telling you to buy, buy, buy.
And you know, one of my favorite takeaways from the book is DeMarco has this thing he calls the law of chocolate chip cookies.
The law of chocolate chip cookies. Okay, I'm intrigued. What is that?
He says if it doesn't get in the cart, it doesn't impact your waistline.
Okay.
And it's the same with your money, right? If you don't buy those impulse items, those chocolate chip cookies, you have more money to put towards your fast lane goals.
Wow. That is so simple, but so true. I love that analogy. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. What's like the one big takeaway you want listeners to remember from this deep dive?
Honestly, I think the biggest takeaway is this. You have the power to create the life you want. You don't have to settle for the traditional path if it doesn't feel right to you.
So find your own fast lane, even if it looks different for everyone.
Exactly. Maybe it's starting a business, maybe it's investing in your skills, or maybe it's something totally different. The important thing is to take control of your own future.
Love it. Take action, build your dream, and don't be afraid to break the mold. Thanks so much for this deep dive. It's been enlightening.
It's been a pleasure.
And for everyone listening, keep those engines revving, and we'll catch you in the next lane.